Hello. I would like to summarize the last few shiurim that we've had and try and come to some type of conclusion. So, in terms of a sex change operation, there is a difference between starting now only with cold halacha, between a sex change of a man becoming a woman and a woman becoming a man. As we learned when we were discussing sirus, sterilization, that a man having the sexual organs removed would be an Isser Torah, and therefore there is no conceivable way that such a thing can be permitted. However, with a woman, we learned that there is a machlokas between the Rishonim and Achronim as to whether the language that the Gemara uses, pater, exempt, means exempt and permitted or exempt and prohibited. And we saw what the Taz had to say about that. If we accept the concept of kimli, that in general a person can say on an existing machlokas to defend their position, I hold by this position, I hold by this shita, not the other shita, by this halachic point and not that halachic point, then a woman that wanted to undergo a sex change operation could say, I hold, like the Taz, that it is mutter to destroy the reproductive organs, and she could conduct herself in that way. This is a cold halachic analysis. When we looked at both the problem of lo yilbosh, the person has to wear the appropriate clothing for their gender, and that cross-dressing was prohibited, we saw that there were two different ways, really, of commentary on these psukim, on these verses. One was to view it as a straight halachic issue, and the other, led by the Ibn Ezra, viewed it as in an extra halachic manner, meta halachic way, and that there is an issue of changing what God had created in the world. God had wanted to create things in a certain way. God desired certain types of societal norms, and any way, any attempt to pervert this was, in the Ibn Ezra's view, a rebellion in some way against God. And that would be obviously problematic. So too, the Ibn Ezra explained our sugya of sterilization in this way. God said that he wanted man and animals and fish and birds to be fruitful and multiply, to increase in the world, to fill the world up, not to leave it void and empty. And destroying the reproductive system, damaging it, preventing it from functioning, would be intrinsically, in the Ibn Ezra's understanding and those that follow his opinions, a frustration of God's desires for the world. So in a meta halachic viewpoint, it wouldn't matter whether the sex changes from a male to a female or a female to a male, that would automatically, because of this frustrating nature of God's desires for the world, be off the table. Now, if we accept that, and I have seen no one that disagrees with the Ibn Ezra's meta halachic understanding of these two isurim, of these two prohibitions, and we say that either a man becoming a woman or a woman becoming a man is not an acceptable action to take, then we are left with a situation of we have many, many things that people do in the world where their actions are in contradiction to the Torah. How do we relate to those people that are acting in a way that is not in line with the Torah's thought? Many years ago, someone came to me to say there was a woman in their shul that wanted to convert to Judaism, but she was concerned that this might be impossible because she used to be a man. And they asked me whether this was possible. And my response was, this is above my pay grade. And so I called my Rebbe, Rav Druckman. And when I presented the Shaila to him, his first question was, is she sincere? Is everything fine? Is it, And I said, I don't know. I haven't met the woman yet. But before I start, I don't want to start a woman in a process, or a man, or any person, whatever, doing something that I cannot complete the process. That would be completely unfair to them. That either at the beginning I have to tell this person that it's possible to complete the process, or it's not possible to complete the process. And the response I got was one of very, very few times that I did not receive an immediate answer from the Rav. And he said, call me back tomorrow at this time. In the meantime, the following morning, I received what was to be the last volume of the Tzitz Eliezer, and I immediately read it, and I saw the Shaila on a man who had undergone a sex change operation to become a woman, and does he/she have to give his wife a get, or the fact that he has been physically changed, does that end the marriage? And of course, the Tzitz Eliezer came out saying that his final position was that this person has a din of an androgynous or a tumtum, and therefore is a suffix, and a get would be required. And I later called up my Charusa, Rav Simcha Weinberg, and I told him the question, and he said, a few weeks ago in the Beis Din, we had decided to convert a woman. And she told us, as we were getting up to go to the mikveh, I have to tell you, I feel I have to tell you at this point that I used to be a man. And they said, wait a minute, we don't know. And their question, that Beis Din's question is what type of shmiras and mitzvos does this person have? Do they have shmiras mitzvos of the woman that they appear to be now, of the man that they were born, or something else? They had no idea. And they said, we can't accept the person that we don't know how they're going to observe mitzvahs. So, and I told them about the Pesach of the Tzitz Eliezer. I then faxed it to him. He said that they would accept the Pesach of the Tzitz Eliezer, and now they can tell the woman that your shmiras mitzvahs is like an androgynous or a tumtum. And when I called Rav Druckman up after that, he told me that it was possible to do the gear if the person was sincere. In fact, they decided on their own that they didn't want to do it. So I have to deal with the issue at the very end. But I later saw, after that point in time, in Maria Bazak, the Chuvas Maria Bazak, they had a question about such a thing, and they said, quoting a medical work, that the sex change operation had no effect, and rejected the possibility of doing such a conversion simply because the action of undergoing a sex change operation was the antithesis of the Torah. I questioned them and said, we presume, our halachic presumption is that the day before someone converts, they're observing, worshiping idols, that they're committing adultery, that they're doing all sorts of things. That's our halachic presumption, which is also the antithesis of the Torah. And our halachic assumption is that only changes at the point of conversion. So why would this be any different than any of those things? In any case, it does happen. And there are people that undergo this operation that want to be part of the Orthodox community. How do we treat them? In a certain sense, someone that was a woman that became a man is a much easier situation to deal with. Because as we learned previously, an androgynous or a tumtum can marry someone but cannot be married. They can act as the male partner in the relationship but not the female partner in the relationship. So therefore, they could live a normal life. And although we clearly cannot say we feel that what they did was acceptable, at this point, once it's already been done, and if they're living within the norms of the Orthodox community, then they could be accepted within the Orthodox community. Now, there are other issues. We would have to examine all the halachas of an androgynous and tumtum, and the Tzitziles at the end of this tshuva says, I wrote, in a specific place, I wrote the answers of how an androgynous or a tumtum has to observe mitzvahs, and that would apply to this person, and that we would have to go through that thoroughly and carefully to see how such a person observes mitzvahs. But let's put that aside. For a man that becomes a woman, not only is the initial operation a much greater, more severe isser, because it's not only the frustration of God's designs for the world, but it's also transgressing a Torah prohibition. And now that they have a female body, nonetheless, they could not, the Torah says that they would be liable to the death penalty if they marry a male. So this would create, this is the Gemara that we've seen previously, this would create a great problem in how they live within the Orthodox community. And obviously they would probably not feel that they wanted to marry a woman, or that this would create other issues of their assimilation into the Orthodox community. So their position is much, much harder to deal with. In any case, one of the things that we say at the end of the chalitza ceremony is that no one else should ever, no other woman should ever have to encounter these problems. That should be, this should be the last time that this issue is confronted. In many ways, although it's, in a certain sense, it's tefillah shav, a wasted prayer, we have to say that we want to be confronted with as few as possible of these questions, of these problems, and how such people should be integrated into the Jewish community. Everyone should have a wonderful, insightful day.